So my name is Vivek Bajaj. I'm responsible globally for our Watson Financial Services Solutions business. So we've been doing a lot with Watson, right? And as you know, we started out in the healthcare space, really applying Watson to the treatment of cancer, because we actually believe that artificial intelligence in and of itself has no value. You must apply it to specific domains so that it has the ability to understand, reason, and learn and deepen its knowledge in those domains. And that's why now we are applying Watson very specifically in the area of financial services to the area of regulatory compliance, right? So whether it has to do with regulators keep coming out with new regulation, and we are applying Watson in the area of being able to ingest those new regulations and determine what is our obligation from the new regulation. So comparing the new regulation with the bank's own policies and helping the bank's officers to figure out what they need to do. So that's one major area. The other area where we're working on is the area of countering financial crimes. So for instance, the customer onboarding or customer due diligence process, know your customer, is again very manually intensive and actually is not always exact because you miss a number of data sources. So with our due diligence capabilities, we're applying Watson to actually be able to assist banks by being able to ingest both structured and unstructured data sources, look at the context of that information, whether it has to do with negative news, whether it has to do with beneficial ownership, and actually even help them to auto-populate or create the customer record so that there's actually detailed information available for the bank's officers to evaluate. Also in the area of anti-money laundering, we are actually helping a typical transaction monitoring system. You'd be amazed to know that many banks, whichever transaction monitoring system they're using, tends to generate an enormous amount of false positives. In many cases with financial institutions I've worked with, almost 95% of fraudulent transactions or alerts that are generated are actually not fraudulent transactions. And where we are applying Watson and Alert Insights capabilities is to assist the AML officers in a bank to actually be able to analyze the patterns of those alerts that are being generated and actually figure out in a more quicker fashion, are these genuinely fraudulent alerts, or based on patterns, do these look a lot like other alerts that in the past we've actually figured out were false positives? So being used really as an aid in decision making in the transaction monitoring area as well. So these are some of the major areas: regulatory compliance, anti-money laundering, customer due diligence onboarding, and also where these are the areas for catching bad guys that might be, unfortunately, your customers, but we're also applying it in the area of catching bad guys who unfortunately sometimes might be your employees. So conduct surveillance, really looking at communications, voice, email, and actually being able to figure out, based on the communication patterns, is there some evidence of collusion, or is there some evidence of actually things that shouldn't be going on that are going on? And you cannot detect this kind of stuff with rules-based systems. You really need a system that is able to detect patterns in information. And what I would end by saying is contextual understanding is crucial, right? So as I mentioned at the start, Watson is a system that understands reasons and learns. And we have chosen in this area of regulatory compliance and counter financial crimes and are investing in delivering that domain expertise. We acquired a company called Promontory Financial Group, which is pretty much 600 ex-regulators exactly for this reason, so that they can interact with our cognitive system and help to deliver that deep domain expertise and help banks to succeed in this way.